thank you all. Opportunity now for questions and comments. So we've got a microphone and be terrific. We've got 4 microphone people here. There's a lady just here. Do you mind just popping your hand up in the air? There we go. Thank you so much. Do you mind saying your name and the area you're from or the organisation that you represent? Thank you.
Trish Worth, and I'm from South Australia, but I'm here today with my fellow directors from Herefords, Australia. Really, probably Bomber's the best person to answer this question, because I've been on his side of the fence through Food Standards Australia and New Zealand when NLIS tags were made mandatory, because a lot of other parts of the world were having problems with mad cow. So I've been extremely impressed with all of you today, and I thoroughly support what you're doing. But I'm just wondering if there's a protection for Australia's reputation as well from another point of view in this, because recently there has been media attention given to the fact that in China they're saying they're selling Australian beef when it's not Australian beef, it's either horse meat or it's from some other country, because they can actually get more money for it from the consumer. So, in your system, do you think that we will be able to protect Australia's reputation from that direction, as well as providing great comfort to our customers?
Good question, Trish.
Is it? I'll take that, sorry. I thought it was directed at Bomber, but
Bomber,
probably...
I'll flick it, Lockie.
You jump in, Bomber. You
absolutely.
in, Bomber.
It's a key risk. I think a lot of... to a degree, a lot of the work there needs to sit with the brand owners. I think the integrity systems are getting the product to the port and to the production place, but it really there is a someone touched on Brand Australia, true Aussie beef, true Aussie lamb, and the MLA and overseas markets are working really closely to build that system. And then there's brand owners like ourselves and NH Foods and all the other Australian processors. Everyone is looking at ways to improve that and maintain that integrity. And our one is obviously that we're trying to build an overarching blockchain system that actually picks up the data so the product is traceable all the way to that point, and a consumer can scan that product, whether that's a QR code or they're getting close to being probably next 5 years phased out. There's new types of technology to identify within the pack, and within the innovation team, within the MLA overall, whether that's within the marketing side or the overseas markets, they're all looking at different tools to bolster that integrity and make sure that it is Australian product. And I think you're referring to, I think it was Four Corners or 60 Minutes the other day, there was a story about the amount of substitution going on. For ourselves, for example, we sell all of our product and all of our brands are sold to an end user, and we have a direct relationship. So we don't use any distributors, we don't use any traders. That's just one tool that we've done as a family-run business, that we maintain that. But we're working on systems to improve that, whether that's, like I was saying, on-pack marketing, in-box tracking devices, and it's across the whole food industry, really. It is a major problem. But in the background within the MLA and every brand owner and every exporter, there's lots of people working on different ways to improve that and continually strengthen that.
Thanks, Lockie. Thank you very much for that question, Trish. Oh, just here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Peter Gordon from Elders, the Innovation Project. The integrity system, I'm intrigued to see which part of the integrity system will assist producers in continuing to have that licence to farm. The challenge that we face out there, and Paul knows this so well through the sale yard system, is that licence to farm and the ability to tell the good story. We continually hear that in the bush every day, that why don't we tell the good story? We tend to suck the oxygen out of the debate and close it down, but continually producers are asking us on a daily basis to tell the good story. Is the integrity system, you believe, set up to assist in that?
So Jane, I might flick that to you, like as far as the communication program that you and Joe and your team are developing about telling stories about how things are working and things. Maybe you could just share a few things about that.
Yeah, sure. And it's a really good question, and probably one that's really underpins a lot of the future investment that we're going to make in the kind of system that we need to develop, you know, by 2025. I guess the word transparency is used by Michelle before is one thing that our systems enable us to have, in terms of we've got a system in place that allows us to verify that we do have systems in place on farm, a baseline level for best practice, that we can tell our customers that our producers are producing, you know, a safe product. It's aligned with animal welfare standards. You know, we're addressing biosecurity concerns and things. So that the systems are in place. That, I guess, in terms of telling our story, and a verified story is where a lot of the data comes into play, to be able to put it all together in terms of really having a really verified system that's underpinned by data that can tell our customers at the end that might buy a bit of Australian steak or whatever, they have access to that information readily. So the systems of the future is one that we have a system that not just stops at the processing sector, which it sort of currently does with our traceability system for NLIS, but it goes right through to the consumer.
Thanks, Jane.
Can I jump in, Robbie?
Please do, Tess.
And look, I think that's the path I was on a minute ago, because we are constantly being told, tell your story. And we run a risk as an industry if it's just story. I'm reminded of the work Charlie Arnott and the Centre for Food Integrity work that he does about shared values. And I actually asked him the question, because he's talking a lot about shared values coming through in story, but he said, if it's just story, it's empty. You need to unpack everything that sits underneath it. And in my mind, all three of the pillars of Integrity Systems Company are important, but LPA, in my mind, is the one that will help in the social licence space, if we're going to use that phrase. So, or I noticed that RMAC are now using the words two-way trust, which is another way of talking about social licence as well. But LPA, with its new modules, animal welfare, biosecurity, and I've already expressed this to Joe, so it's not too controversial, but we need to beef that up, I'll be honest with you. Over time, LPA will evolve. There are a plethora of company systems out there that go above and beyond LPA, and we need to be moving to what companies are doing with their own producers. NFAS is an example for the feedlot industry, but I know that supermarket suppliers are being audited for quality assurance purposes as well. We need to be really looking at what is happening in our industry with all of those QA systems and adopting some of those into LPA over time. That'll be a cultural change, and it'll be quite, I'll be honest, it'll be quite difficult for some producers, but we need to move towards a cultural change in our thinking about quality assurance underpinning every one of our businesses.
Well, consumers are demanding it, so we've got no choice. So that's where it's at. So it's a really good point, Tess. Thanks very much for the question. Yes. We've got a question just here, I think. Oh, here we go. Thank you.
Yeah, Ross Coggill from Windy Station. My question's probably to Jane on where the LDL feedback's up to in terms of, we've been selling a lot of weaner cattle, probably go through 2 or 3 sets of hands before they get to the processor. Will those cattle, will the feedback from those cattle when they get to turn up on the LDL, does it get back to the original pick at this stage or not?
So the LDL data at the moment is provided back to the person who sells it immediately to the processor, but it's also accessible by the person that bred the animals as well.
Yeah. Thanks. Good question. Just here, thank you very much.
Thanks. I'm Mike Deckman from European Grazing. Just a question where, with all this new systems in place, and it's been going on for quite a while, and the transparency that's there, I don't know this question probably directed to, maybe Bomber could help with some of it from a government perspective, but it's open to the panel, is on regulation and compliance. Transparency means it works both ways. So if a producer or a supplier has a question of a processor, for example, and they ask for information, and that's difficult to get that information back, or they deny or avoidance cope to provide it, what's open to the producer to follow it through?
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Bomber.
Yeah, I suppose Sorry, sir, I don't know if your question's from a legislative point of view or from a production point of view. If it's from a production point of view, I suppose I might hand over to someone else. But from a legislative point of view, some jurisdictions legislate for that process of feedback. If I talk about processes, some states haven't. So that's something from a consistency point of view that we are looking at as we go forward. But yeah, I don't know, you might be able to enhance me a bit more.
I've been contacted, I can speak from my own experiences in the past, but I won't, about other producers contact me that they've been through the ACCC process to receive clear and transparent feedback from incorrect, or what they believed, and they was proven incorrect processing methods or applications. They've asked for the detail and the data to come back to them, and it's been avoided. Now, they have nowhere to go to make sure that that is received by them, open and transparent,
Yeah.
which could become a national risk.
Yeah. I'll make comment on I know some producers, some producers do read their cattle off and keep the RFIDs in their possession when they're processing, and then compare those RFIDs with the kill list that they're provided. As far as ACCC, I'm going to fail you there. I don't get involved in too much of that aspect at all. I don't know if anyone else on the panel's got any insight into that, but certainly not in my charter within the State Department.
Okay. Thanks very much. Thank you for that question. Yes, thank you very much over here.
Thank you. Robert Herman from Ricardo and Ballarat.
Hang on, Robert, just one sec. We just might turn him on.
Robert Herman from Ricardo at Ballarat. I think Bomber hit the nail on the head that the system will know how good it is if it ever gets tested with a disease incursion. And that means we have to have a really good system, and we have to use all the technology we possibly can. So with that in mind, the sheep industry seems really vulnerable because the only state that introduced EID mandatory is Victoria, and the thought then was that once one state did it, everyone would follow. It just seems there's no effort for that to continue now, and I'm wondering if that's not something that we should be focusing on, and if it is, where should that focus come from? Thank you.
Thank you.
I might take part of that.
Thanks,
I think
Michelle.
someone else can answer some of it.
Thank you.
But I think in terms of Victoria going first, I think we actually need to move as a country in having that individual identification within the sheep industry. Our markets are going to ask for that, our export markets, so we need to be moving really as a country in doing that. So yeah, we're, as going to go meat processors, we're completely ready to move forward with that. But someone else might be able to comment on some
I
of that as well.
will make a
Jane, thank
comment.
you. You're a sheep
not
producer?
that I'm a sheep
Yes.
producer, not that I sit on Sheep Producers Australia, but really that's where it's got to be driven from. Sheep Producers Australia as well as Wool Producers Australia. They are the industry peak group that needs to drive that.
Yeah.
So
it is, yeah.
as producers, if that is, and you know, I probably agree very much with you, Robert, that we are at risk. My fear is, though, that we'll all go to use EIDs, but we won't use the data. So I think there's two sides to it. So go to EID, that makes the traceability and that sort of thing much easier, but please ensure our producers are using the data for production benefits as well.
Exactly. And it's a sheep meat and a sheep wool situation. Jane?
I'll just add to that the Sheep Traceability Working Group, which is underpinned by Sheep Producers Australia, it is a priority for them to have a look at what the opportunity is for a national rollout of EID, and so the work's kind of being done in the background, I guess, to really understand the cost benefits of doing that, and how potentially it might benefit the whole country if we go down that line.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Thanks. Voma?
Robbie, just a comment too, I think the other big thing that we would really encourage, or jurisdictions would really encourage, is that, often traceability systems for particular species was just done within that species. You know, I've seen a real change in the last 18 months where other species are getting interested in the performance of other NLIS species, and I think that that's a positive thing. We see that in that safe meat framework. We see it in cross-jurisdictional discussions that, you know, the performance of one particular species may impact the other in a significant disease incursion. We're very aware of that, and to highlight what Jane said there, I think there's been a real shift and there's been some real interest shown across species about the performance of the whole system, and that's what I was trying to indicate before in that final comment that I made.
Thanks, Foma. Oh, gentlemen, just across here, thanks.
Robbie.
Thank you. Hello, Carol from Cattle Producers Australia. We've had two Senate inquiries and the ACCC, which was mentioned before, study on meat and the industry, beef industry. Just inquiring, there's a lot of talk about price transparency in the industry. We haven't heard a lot about price transparency throughout the industry and through the processing right to the end. And that would help beef farmers or production a lot to ensure that we do get a reasonable price into the future. Is there any chance of integrity systems sort of playing a role there?
Thank you. It's a good, we might have that as our final question for today. So I might hand to Jane on that. Thanks, Jane.
So I think there's certainly a focus, you know, at looking at value-based marketing methodologies and things like that. At this stage, that does not fit within the remit of Integrity Systems Company, but the broader industry is certainly working on that, so it is a work in progress.
Jane, whilst you've got the microphone, I might ask for you just to do some closing words, if that suits. And also I'd like to acknowledge and thank all of our panellists today. It's been a great session, but I'll hand to you for that, Jane. I'll take your spot.
So I think you better thank our panellists and Robbie for just a fantastic job. And we're definitely on the home straight now. So what have we heard today? Have we got the clicker somewhere?
No, it's just on.
It's on the floor.
Oh. Great. So I cannot emphasise how important our integrity systems are for our industry and how they're only going to become even more important in the near future. Our systems underpin our $18.4 billion industry through the market access that they support and the biosecurity readiness that they provide. Overall, they do provide significant benefit to our industry within the realm of $7 for every dollar invested, which over the last 5 years equates to around $499 million. Our panel session today had many highlights, but I guess a few of the key points were around how a diverse value chain really values the integrity system in many different ways. That provenance and traceability are more important than ever. We need to stay focused and we need to deliver on what our customers want. That data will be a key driver to profitability across the industry. And probably the big one is all about transformational change, and that's required to maintain our competitive edge. The Integrity Systems Company is responsible for responding to all of these relentless challenges through the initiation of the industry-developed Integrity Systems 2025 strategy and beyond. This strategy sets a roadmap for driving our integrity systems into the next generation of technology and data systems that will ultimately simplify the system for the supply chain and add even more value to our industry and overall strengthen and enhance the trust that our customers have in the products that we sell. So the call to action today is all about understanding what incredible systems we have in place now and how, as committed members of the supply chain, that you can all be so proud of what is achieved by having these systems. Get behind these systems, get engaged with ISC. We are always here and always looking for ways to improve our systems all the way through. So thank you so much for your participation today. And again, another big thank you to Robbie for doing such a great job with our panel and our panellists. We better thank them all again.